Did you know that you could pay no taxes on your U.S. income if you're able to earn it while living in the Dominican Republic? I'm going to explain how exactly that works, and it's a little easier than you might think. Plus, I'm going to answer all of your questions on this AMA video. Let's dive in. Glenn1 asks if the Dominican Republic offers foreigners any tax incentives or other benefits. And the answer is yes. The first is the Confitor exemption, which you can get if you buy real estate in the Dominican Republic. Now, the other benefit from a tax perspective is not specifically offered by the Dominican Republic. It's actually offered by the United States. And this is called the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion. FEIE. And here's essentially what it says. If you live in another country and have paid any tax, $1, $10, $1,000, $100,000, then you can waive U.S. taxes on the first $120,000 that you earn. Now, the requirement is that you can show that you live in another country, either as a resident full-time or that you've been in another country over a 365-day rolling period for 330 days. Let me make that a little simpler. Let's say from June of 2023 to June of 2024, you spent 331 days in another country, or at least not in the United States. Say you traveled back to the United States for 2 days here, 6 days there, 3 days there, and it added up to 29 days. If you can show that you paid any tax in another country, you can waive all taxes up to $120K of income that you earn. So if you earned $80,000 and you show tax in another country you've lived in 330 days plus, you pay no tax. If you made $50,000 with those conditions, you pay no tax. If you made $120,000 in those conditions, you pay no tax. If you made $150,000, you pay no tax on the first 120. Then on the next 30, you might pay taxes. I'll cover that in a second. But again, this is for United States citizens living anywhere, because one thing is true about the United States and tax law. Doesn't matter where you live, every year you need to file a return back in the United States. U.S. taxes citizens, period. They don't tax based on location. Now, over $120,000, if you're lucky enough to make income at that level, you can still get a one-for-one reduction of your tax bill in the United States under the FTC, or Foreign Tax Credit Program. Essentially, from what I could see, it means that if you paid $1,000 in taxes somewhere else, you can take $1,000 in taxes off of your U.S. bill. Again, over 120. So let's just say you make $150,000 a year and you could show that you've lived in another country. Let's say you just lived there the whole time. You haven't stepped foot in the United States in 2 years, a year, 5 years, whatever. At least 330 out of 365 days. Then you're going to pay nothing on the first 120. Now, if on the next 30, because you earn 150, you would owe $2,000 in taxes to the United States and you paid $1,000 in the Dominican Republic, then you can waive one of the $2,000 on your U.S. tax bill. Now, let's be very clear. This bald gringo is not a tax expert. I am not a financial guru. I am none of those things. I'm a dude who drives around, gets bored, and makes YouTube videos about living in the Dominican Republic. This is my understanding. I'm sure what I said is at least 80% accurate, but please seek out professional guidance on this. The other part that I'm learning by being this guy driving around making these videos is people often say, can you give me somebody that can guide me on this? The answer is yes. Again, down in the caption, you'll see the Trusted Realtor link. There's also a link if you need an immigration or tax attorney or even real estate attorney. You can fill out those forms and I'll be happy to connect you to mine. Once again, they'll pay me a finder's fee if you decide to work with them. You decide if you want to or not. Up to you. But to be clear, everybody on any of these forms that you complete, I work with. I trust. Now, 2417 asks this question: what do you do for a living? This I get often from a lot of people. And as much as I feel like I explain it, I understand that not everybody's watching all my stuff all the time. So let me explain. My job for 21 years was in insurance claims for a big company called Progressive. You've all heard of it. I don't know Flo. I've never met her. I get asked that all the damn time. But with Progressive, again, I was in claims. So when people got into an accident, my departments handled that. And I climbed the corporate ladder over 21 years. Around year 17, I got what I thought was my dream job, which was this executive level equity position, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and accumulating a whole bunch of what are called restricted stock units, stock options, equity, essentially, in the company, like hundreds of thousands, where if I walk away, all of it goes away unless it vested. When I got the job 17 years in, I also realized I didn't want the job 17 years in. Thought it was the dream job. I moved from Boston to Michigan with my family at that time, but yeah, I fell out of love. I didn't realize it until I actually got the thing that I thought I wanted. So I started going down other paths, starting with real estate, thought that was going to be it. I accumulated 41 units of property in partnership with other people. Even later on, did something called syndicating, which is where you raise capital from folks and you buy properties and give a return while also owning a share of the property yourself. And I invested myself in all of those properties as well. And then I went down the path of podcasting and personal branding and so on. The thing that actually pays me the most, where I make the most money is with something called GoBundance Emerge. GoBundance Emerge is a networking community for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. Think of it like a country club. Why do you join? You join because of the thing you enjoy, might be golf, and the networking you do with other high-minded, successful people. And people pay annual dues for the access to the club, the community, the other people. That's essentially what GoBundance Emerge is. It's something called a mastermind group. There's tons of them out there, and they can be topic-based. There could be real estate masterminds, marketing masterminds, e-commerce masterminds, sales masterminds, fitness masterminds, you name it. A bunch of people coming together over a common objective, and they're willing to pay some money for access to that community. In our case, in GoBundance Emerge, our members rally around a few different principles. They want to be what we call whole life millionaires. That means great in their health, their wealth, their relationships, their contribution to others, and their adventure. And we apply what we call extreme accountability to help each other using different technologies and tools achieve goals, become millionaires in many, many cases. Actually, 90 of our members have become millionaires. Our members pay annual dues, $5,000 per member per year. There are regional events that they attend. There are national events that they attend. There are weekly content drops and weekly interaction calls that we structure for them in order to achieve their goals. Just like if you had tea times once a week at the country club that you pay your membership dues to. I pour my heart and soul into that community because I love seeing other people get where they want to go. And I also believe that if it adds value enough to somebody where I can also make a living doing it, that's a dream scenario. So what I do for a living, community leader, call it. The way our community is structured is for members and by members. It's not about me. It's not about me teaching and educating everybody. All I do is bring in my network of people who really know what they're talking about in order to teach and share with the members of our community. So I'm just a good facilitator of information and connection to people. Crazy what you can do when you think outside of the corporate box. Now, in addition, I still do have real estate that I own. I make a little on that short term. That's more my retirement plan. And then honestly, this channel has opened up an opportunity for me as more and more people are looking for access to realtors and lawyers or whatever. Being able to provide that for you in a quality way and placing my reputation on it really is the beginnings of another stream of income and allows me to focus even more time on content creation. Esther Gardens Childcare asks a question that I had not been able to answer until recently. And she's asking about schools for kids with autism. There are many schools around the country for kids with autism in La Romana, in Santo Domingo, in Santiago, and so on. But this question often comes to me specific to where I live, which is Punta Cana. And until about 2 weeks ago, I would have said, no good options here. But then, from talking to the parent of a kid whose kid goes to school with my kids, he has another kid with special needs. And my understanding was he was taking his kid with special needs to La Romana every day, about a 45-minute drive. But he corrected me. He said, no, I do it right here in Punta Cana. There's a school here, small but growing, called Talentum. I did an Instagram reel on this featuring the school. It is a full-time school, but there's also a developmental center that they're attached to, same owners. So these kids that go to Talentum full-time can get additional after-school care and work, but also other kids in the area that might be higher functioning and able to go to sort of a quote-unquote regular school, or kids that don't really have any special needs but are just struggling with learning on certain topics can go to this developmental center after school for additional guidance. The director, or one of the directors and founders, is actually a woman who's been educated both in the Dominican and in the United States, originally from Santo Domingo. And that school is open and available. I'll drop the link to their Instagram down below. You can DM them. Again, this is one of those things I don't take any. There's no sponsorship here. There's no nothing. It's just an incredible value add for anybody who has a kid with special needs and has said, man, I'd love to get my kid into that environment. They hear me talk about, look, no school shootings, the proximity to others, the connection, the culture, this sort of Christian-based values of this amazing nation. But I need my kid to be supported with special needs. In Punta Cana, we have that now. Talentum is the spot. Maybe there's another I haven't heard of yet. If there is, drop it down in the comments. But that's the big one that I've heard of recently, and I'm really, really excited to share that with all of you. All right, Zoo Ook has a concern that many of you may share, and he essentially says, or she, I want to own a piece of the Dominican Republic, not necessarily move there, but I'm afraid it's going to backfire on me. Valid concern. Here's my response to that. Look at buying property in the Dominican Republic and analyze it like you would any other investment you make. Here's what I mean. If you were to sit there and look at a bunch of investments that you can make, and on that list of investments, there's Procter & Gamble, Progressive Insurance, Coca-Cola, and some other big, what they call blue chip type stocks. Now, there's very little risk in investing in those stocks. They're very expensive, I understand that, but they're not going to likely fluctuate wildly unless you have scandals or whatever. And even if you do, they tend to recover and kind of go back to where they were. So because they're low risk, they also have low reward, meaning you'll get your return over time, but it'll be slow and kind of boring and plodding. That's what they're built for. That's why they're blue chips. So depending on your age and stage in life, you should allocate a certain percentage. If you're older, more. If you're younger, maybe a little less, to those sorts of investments. Very secure, very safe, very boring, very certain that you'll see them tick up 5, 6, 7%, whatever it is per year. And then over here, you might have a collection of penny stocks, like new companies that have been built recently that maybe what they're doing excites you, but yeah, I mean, the company's just kind of getting its legs under it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I have enough belief to think that, you know what? I'd like to invest some money in that. So you take some money and you invest in that. I call this your sandbox money. So if you've got $10,000 to invest 8 or 9 of it in blue chip or secure investments. Maybe you take 1,000 and you put it in something that's a little bit more certain, but still risky. But then you might take 1,000 and say, if I lose it, I lose it. But I want to just take a shot on what I believe might be a really great investment. I've done this with success and I've done this without success. So it's literally a coin toss. Now, the Dominican Republic, I believe, should be considered somewhere between that sandbox and that not so risky, somewhat certain, but still not a blue chip type of investment. It's still a developing nation. There's a ton of progress in many, many different areas that impact positive growth in the country. If you've got 50 grand to your name though, and nothing more to invest, I don't think this is the place to put all of your money. However, if you've got 10 grand out of 100,000 to invest and you want to buy down here, then do it. The only way it can backfire is if you allow it to be too large a percentage of your portfolio. Now, what I believe is what's more likely to backfire is you'll wish you invested more in 5 or 10 years, depending on where you invest. Punta Cana is a very solid investment. It'll have its downs, it'll have its ups, but it's a great investment long-term. The St. Regis and the Hyatt and major companies are investing in infrastructure here, in business here. They know better than me and you. It's a good indicator, like there must be something to this. Again, doesn't mean that there won't be corrections along the way, but long-term, great investment. I believe Las Terrenas, which is up on the North Shore, well, more Samana Peninsula in the north. I believe that is a spot that many of us will look back in 10 years and be like, God, it seemed so expensive back then, but had I only invested then, what it would be worth now? The Las Terrenas Samana, I think, is absolutely speculative, but boy, oh boy, I don't see how it's not a great investment absent something crazy happening. There's areas like Pedernales, which are still not quite there. They don't have the airport like Samaná does, small one, but there's potential there. There's Bayaibe, which is by La Romana. There is an airport in La Romana. That's an area that's developing. That's probably a good speculative investment that's lower risk, but still risky. Anything in DR you should consider in more of your risky investment bucket. So don't put all your eggs here. I wouldn't say that to anybody. Don't take all your money and invest here. If you're moving here and you're taking your capital from your home or whatever and you're buying to live, that's a different story. But if you're looking at, I'm going to take all my money and invest in the Dominican Republic, I would caution you, diversify. So the only way you get burned is if you overdo any speculative investment. Point blank. Look, a lot of these topics I also cover in more depth in my weekly Gruber Nation newsletter. Again, go down to that caption. I add all these links down there. Subscribe to it and you'll get this sent to your inbox every Thursday. But everything I've ever written is still in that list. Once you subscribe, you'll get access to all the past newsletters I've written. So check that out to go deeper on some of these quick topics we're talking about. All right, Meki0612 asks if there's still any $1,200 units or rental units available. Not looking at the question, so I think that's what it said. I want to take this and twist this the other way a little bit and say this. I get the question about short-term rental. Is it oversaturated? Is it overdone? Is there a good manager? All of that all the time. And here's my answer to most short-term rental questions. There's a lot of competition, a ton. And there are ways to stand out for sure. The property you buy could even stand out if it's beachfront versus not. But a strategy that is underutilized, and I see, at least anecdotally, as being in higher demand right now because no one's doing it, is long-term rental. If you are buying an apartment down here and you're thinking, well, I want to use it a week or two a year and then rent it out short-term in the meantime, I would consider, if I were you, never staying in that apartment and renting it out long-term, especially if renting it out is a dependency for you for affording it. In other words, If you can't afford the apartment unless you rent it out, first off, I would consider not investing at that point. Like, make sure you can afford to pay out of pocket if no renter is in the apartment for a while, but you probably will have better luck and fill the vacancy faster if you consider renting it out long-term, like a 12-month lease, or at least maybe a 6 or 8-month lease for snowbirds. Then when you come down, stay with family, stay at a resort, pay to stay somewhere else, take some of the cash flow from the long-term rental to do that. I know you bought it to stay there, but once you get your footing under you, or maybe even pay it off where it doesn't cost you as much, then use it for you and short-term rental it the rest of the year. Again, you may have a ton of success, but there's a lot of options for short-term rental right now. And I think long-term, from what I see, has a lot more demand behind it than there is supply. There's demand for short-term for sure, but there's also a lot of supply. So it's harder to stand out. It's more work. Got to get a great manager, all of that. Whereas if you're willing to long-term rent to professionals or digital nomads, you might have better luck in that regard. That's what I got. If you have other questions, drop them down below in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. If I can help you connect to any of the professionals that I mentioned, or if you want my newsletter, just follow the links down below and grab anything and everything you want. And I appreciate y'all following along.